All right, we'll call the council meeting to order. Everybody stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
The flag
of the United
of the
States of
States of
America
America,
and to the republic
to the
for
republic for
which
which
it
it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
with
and
liberty
justice for all.
and justice for all.
Clerk, take the roll.
She's on there.
She muted? Becky, you there? Are you muted?
I don't see her.
Well, it's Becky Eggen.
She's there.
Here I am.
There she is.
Hide and seek.
So yeah. Are we on roll call? Sorry. Mayor O'Connor,
Here.
Morissette,
Here.
Alms, DeZiel,
Here.
Weber,
Here,
Atkins Hoggett, and Hall.
Here.
All right, first thing we have up is presentation from Lakeview EMS, John Muller. John, welcome. Good to have you here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for coming for an update. Appreciate that. It's always good to hear from you.
Common council out there in virtual world. Well, first of all, I would like to, again, thank you guys for putting your trust in us to take good care of your city, and I think we've really done that. Well, I know we've done that. So what I'd like to do is just present you with the 2020 data, just kind of a quick overview, hitting some of the key areas that we did for the year. So just some quick department updates, highlights of the year. In November, we kind of hit our peak of the COVID pandemic within our department. We had a number of employees contract COVID. Most of those were probably all work-related. They were treated as though they were work-related. And we were seeing our highest volumes of COVID-related patients in all of our communities. And then as quick as that month came up, it kind of all just slowed down, and staff came back to work, and we almost really never skipped a beat. So that was a good thing, because we were planning for the worst. We in early April of 2020, we put together a surge plan that would allow us to staff all 9 of our ambulances if we needed to do that. And we based that on a number of different response calls per day, and just kept increasing it. And we based that solely on the staffing would be just our full-time employees. So we had the schedule put together. When we started to see in the Twin Cities and around the region the numbers increasing, we actually put a schedule together and actually put people on a schedule. We never had to put that schedule in play, but people knew what days they were going to have to work if we had to pull the trigger on that. So I feel that we were very well prepared if we had to ramp up and do that. So that's for your information. Lately, we've hired 4 new paramedics and 2 casual paramedics. We had some turnover late fall of last year. A couple people moved on to different jobs, not in EMS, advancing in their careers. And then someone is going to school. They stayed on, but they dropped from full-time to a casual employee. One of the things that I set up here a lot in the years that I've come here and presented to you guys, we've never had a problem with hiring and recruiting people. And I can't say that today. So I think with the pandemic, I think people are worried about leaving the jobs they have, going someplace new. But we've struggled to find good quality people in this market today. We've been successful, but we've had to work at it. So we continue to do that.
So John, with the, if I might, the 4 new hires, full-time, or is that
Yeah.
a net plus or neutral?
It's full-time, and then 2 of the casuals, so six people in the last year.
But with the people that you lost, are you at a higher complement than what you had? Are you at the same complement? Are you,
Right now, we're down 2 full-time
okay.
employees.
Maybe you said that and I missed it. I
Yeah.
apologize.
So that's a good question, though. In the last year, we had 12 of our paramedics complete critical care training, and they are now endorsed with the state of Wisconsin. That brings us up to 28 of our full-time paramedics are critical care certified. 11 of those took the class out of Creighton University, and one of them got critical care training through the military. We had finalized the plans with St. Croix County ERU team, and we've put 2 paramedics on that team, and they are active members of the team. They've attended all the trainings, and I don't think since they've been on they've had any call-outs. We purchased 3 new ventilators in the last year. That was really because of a donor. When COVID hit, there was a number of people that came forward and wanted to do donations, and there was a family in the Stillwater area that specifically wanted to donate money to the hospital for ventilators because they knew there was such an issue with ventilators worldwide. They wanted to make sure that we had what we needed. And we were fortunate enough, my department, to be able to take advantage of that. These 3 ventilators that we bought, unfortunately, we got our order in right away. I want to say in May that order went in, maybe even mid-April. We didn't see the ventilators till November. So the government took, everything that was available had to go to the government. So, but we have those. Those are the most state-of-the-art transport ventilators that are available right now on the market. We have ventilators on our ambulances. It's a step down from these current ones that we got. These ventilators with the COVID, you're seeing a lot of respiratory issues. These ventilators work much better than our older ventilators. The older ventilators, the settings are just not as precise as this high-tech ventilator. So our goal is to have these new ventilators on all of our primary trucks. So right now we just have them on the 3 here in Hudson and Stillwater. So in the last year, we assisted Hudson Hospital to get their stroke-ready designation by the state. That's a very big process, and Bridget worked with the leadership up at Hudson Hospital to make sure that we could give them the information they needed so that they were able to pass their inspection when the state came out. They did get that, and they are a stroke-ready hospital, which is really good news for this community. We do see a lot of stroke patients out there, and having a stroke-ready hospital means that we can bring them from the community they live in to the hospital, which is a much shorter time, and they can start the treatment before they have to go to a higher level of care. And it's been proven that this treatment is life-saving, and the disability factor of the strokes is much more reduced when you cut that time out of it by going to the full stroke hospitals. One of the things that we're really proud of our entire team, in the last year, we did not have one open shift. And I've never seen that in my career at Lakeview. Our team stepped up, and we were having team members go out in the middle of their shift because they're having symptoms of COVID, and they're leaving like right now. You got to go. We send them over to get tested. Now we're short. And we'd put a page out and people were taking that. So there was a couple of times we went a few hours before we could get someone in, but all of our shifts were covered.
Awesome.
What we do over here, the Hudson truck is a mandatory coverage area, so we always maintain the 2 trucks over here when there's shortage, and we just move the other vehicles around. So you guys were covered the whole time. I hope we can continue that. It relieves the stress on the staff by not having open shifts. So it's a good morale thing to have, and I'm really happy to see that. All of our staff received the option to receive vaccinations or decline their COVID vaccinations in December. All but 2 of our staff received both of their vaccinations. So 2 of them just decided at this point they didn't want to do that. And we had our, despite COVID, we did continue to have our 4 EMS advisory review committee meetings for 2020. And those meetings went very well. We had good attendance at those meetings.
Did you have any of your people test positive?
With COVID?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we had 6 or 7 of them. A couple of them were out because they were exposed. So we lose them for, the 14 days in the
Right.
beginning. And then we did have some definitely positive. So they all did good. No one had any severe symptoms. But, it's almost inevitable, the
Oh, yeah.
number of patients they were seeing. And
Yeah.
so here's some data for 2020, just for the city of Hudson. We did 1,196 calls in the city. Of that, 833 of them required lights and siren response to the scene, 363 no lights and sirens. So we had an overall average response time of 4 minutes and 4 seconds. And then the fractile time, 90% of the time we were on scene within 6 minutes and 53 seconds. During that year, we had 3 mutual aid calls here in the city, which I think is a really good number.
John, I can't remember this. Where is the 1,196 calls? How does that compare to previous years? Do you remember?
I never saw the data.
Okay.
I don't know what the call was. I thought they were around 1,200, but I don't know if that included transfers as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe towards the end we saw the data, but I don't ever recall seeing that.
Only 3 requests for mutual aid. That's pretty
Yeah, that's
phenomenal.
really good. This slide just shows you month to month the response time, both on average and fractile response time. One of the things the peer review committee caught on right away was why did we see a drop in April in response times? The reason for that is we moved to the new building. So we found within the first month of being in this building here and the ambulances across the street that our crews could not get out to that ambulance in 2 minutes. Or, they averaged about 2 minutes. But, it's a long walk over there and the cars don't wait for you. So
Yeah.
you got to wait for the cars. So we did see a improvement in our response times once we got to the new base. And the other thing that we noticed is we do a lot more calls up there around the hospital, which really shorten our response times. So here's just a different breakdown of the calls in the city. Again, there was 833 that required lights and sirens. Next is transport. So how many of these patients were transported lights and sirens? Of the 703 I don't know how many required transport, but 703 of them were transported back to the hospital with no lights and sirens, and 61 of them were transported with lights and sirens. And the difference there is our goal is to always get on scene, stabilize the patient, and transport them non-lights and sirens. If we're going back to the hospital, lights and sirens, they're very critical, and we need to get there as quick as we can. So we always want that number to be lower. You see that blank section in there, 299. Those are non-transports canceled before we got to the scene. Same with the not applicable. So if our crews, both of those mean the same thing, but if the crews don't put not applicable on it because they're not transporting them, it shows up as a blank on there. So the other column on the other side shows you the ambulances. So both of our Hudson ambulances are ambulance 805 and 806. Those are designated the 2 Hudson ambulances. Doesn't matter what truck we have there. When they come in the morning, start their shift, it's either going to be an 805 or 806. So that always tells us we know where that truck started, and that's how we're able to track what the 2 trucks do that are stationed here in the city. So you see that those 2 trucks did the majority of the calls. That's the way it should be. And then the other calls that you're seeing, 803 and 802 are the 2 Stillwater trucks. 804 is our North St. Paul truck. 807 and 808 is not listed on here. They're backup trucks that we use for special events. So that's just how we designate the ambulances. But even though you see that the North St. Paul ambulance responded 6 times to the city of Hudson, that doesn't mean that they came from North St. Paul. They could have been dropping a patient off at Lakeview and ended up coming over here to cover because they were the closest truck to cover, and then ended up getting a call over here. So that's how that works. The next page, this is a breakdown in the types of calls. So of the total calls for 2020, there was 1,172 that were 911 response, came through the 911 system. 700 calls were for interfacility transfers. 24 calls were for standby, either police events or fire events. We'd had no special events in 2020 for a total of 1,896 calls within the city of Hudson. And if you guys have questions, by all means, you can stop me. Otherwise, I'll just keep going here. This next slide just shows you a breakdown of the types of calls and what the disposition was of the call. So I won't go through all of them. You have the data there, but I can just explain a couple of them. Canceled on scene, no patient contact. Those are types of things that we want to follow because when we look at non-transports, there's certain procedures that they need to do, but if they had no contact with the patient, then we don't need to look into that. So that's how we follow those. Go to the next slide. Patient transportation destination. This just shows you where the people that we responded in your city were transported to. And again, the patient has the option to choose. We can make recommendations based on their acuity and what's wrong with them. But again, the patient ultimately makes the choice where they want to go. And here's the breakdown of where they went. So obviously 523 went back to Hudson Hospital. That's really always our goal. If we can get all the patients to go back to the local hospital, that keeps our ambulances in service. We can get back in service much quicker. Our turnaround times are much shorter. So we always want to go to the closest facility if we can. 44 of them were transported to Lakeview, and then 147 to Regions. Those were the big ones. Next slide, this is just the dispatch reasons. This is why we were dispatched. This is for all the calls that we had in the city of Hudson. Again, I'm not going to go through them all, but that's the breakdown. And it doesn't mean, just because we were dispatched to 27 cardiac arrests, doesn't mean that they all turned out to be 27 cardiac arrests. It's based on what the dispatch center gives us at the time. It's pretty accurate, though. Here's some data of the Hudson service area. So we define the Hudson service area as the city of Hudson, village of North Hudson, town of Troy, town of Hudson, Warren. Did I miss any? I think that's it. So we kind of look at that book of business separate from everything else, and this is the breakdown of that. So in the Hudson service area, we had 1,703 calls. If I include the mutual aid calls that we did for 2020, that's 1,994 calls. Of those calls, we had a 4-minute, just a little under a 5-minute response time. For the entire service area of Hudson, we had, I'm going to say 4 mutual aid requests. I have 6/4 on there. There were 2, this is very difficult data to track. Well, I shouldn't say difficult. You really have to look at the data each month when it comes in, because the dispatch center is the one who logs this information for us. And if St. Croix County calls us and requests an ambulance and we don't have it, we tell them right away we need River Falls to respond. That gets listed as a mutual aid request. If they call back in 30 seconds and say, oh, you can cancel, they don't need an ambulance now, it still shows up as a mutual aid. So there was 2 of them that we got canceled within 30 seconds of the request coming in. So in my book, we had 4 mutual aid calls in the service area. But we provided 291 mutual aid calls from this base in Hudson. So we did, well, I'll get to the numbers, but that's a lot of mutual aid that we provided for other services out of this operation over here. So here's a breakdown of our, the whole entire Lakeview EMS operation. So in 2020, we did 10,394 calls. Of that, 7,835 were 911 responses. 2,237 were interfacility transfers. That's from one hospital to another. And we provided 638 mutual aid calls to other services. We did 174 public safety standby events. There were 9 special events that we covered in 2020 throughout the service area. And in a whole, as the whole service area, we requested mutual aid to cover us 27 times. So I'm not great at math, but I know that's less than 0.5%. And I think I reported to you here at one of the council meetings a year or so ago that we were about 2 to 2.5% was our mutual aid requests. And my guess would be that we'd bring it down to 1% by adding the service here. And it turned out to be that way. This slide here shows you, yes?
John, Jim Weber, did this enable you, did you do a lot more mutual aid calls than you typically would do?
Yeah,
Just expanded.
yeah, absolutely, Jim. That number was way higher than what we normally do. We're in the upper 100s to 200s for mutual aid, but if you can see on this slide, River Falls alone, we did 243 calls. So that really skewed our numbers. I mean, they're true numbers, but River Falls made a decision while they were going through their transition that they were going to utilize Lakeview to provide all their interfacility transfers. So those are primarily interfacility transfers. But still, it's considered mutual aid because it's not our area. So, yeah, these are all the cities that we provided mutual aid for. The other piece of that is, too, in 2020, we did a lot of work during the civil unrest. We spent a few days in Minneapolis working with Hennepin County. So we had ambulances over there and throughout the metro. So that kind of spread us around the area that we don't normally cover.
Fancy stuff.
Here's a couple of goals that I thought I would just share with you guys. We develop department goals every year. These were two of some of the goals we had for 2020. And one of the things that we were looking at in 2020 was trying to compare our scene time, from the time we get on scene till the time a 12-lead EKG is put on a patient. We want that to be under 10 minutes. That's kind of a national goal in hospitals. I don't know if there's a lot of EMS systems out there that do that, but it was a good goal to kind of go along with our emergency department that looks at from the time a patient enters the door of the hospital to the time they're given aspirin and a 12-lead EKG is done. They want that under 10 minutes. That's pretty difficult for us to do. We've never looked at this goal before, but we came in at 80%. So 80% of the time, the patients that meet the criteria, I should have said that, anyone that's having cardiac-related symptoms falls into this category. So 80% of the time we were able to have a EKG, 12-lead EKG done in 10 minutes or less. I think we were at 7 minutes and something 80% of the time. So we'll continue that goal this year. We know there's some data inaccuracies with that, meaning it's how the crew is entering the data through the computer system. We got to kind of just figure that out and make sure it's all getting entered in the correct way. And then the other time that I think is important for you guys to know is our en route times. So our goal is always 90 seconds or less for the ambulance to be on the road. And we couldn't meet it when we were here. So we just told the crews that do the best that you can. We're not going to keep tracking it. And then we ended up at the year at 1 minute and 36 seconds, 90% of the time. So from the time we received the call to the time the wheels are rolling, was 1 minute and 36 seconds. So, questions?
That's really good, John. It's good information. You guys
Yeah,
are doing a
thank you.
great job.
Yeah, we've had great support too, from the police department, the fire department. There was a lot of concern how the interactions would be. Those guys are professionals in both departments that we work with, and it was so relieving to come here and be treated the way we've been treated by everyone. The community has given us a lot of support. A lot of businesses have dropped off food for the crews or gift certificates. So we saw a lot of support in the community when we came here. So
Excellent.
our crews are very happy to work here. They like it. We moved into our new base. I should have mentioned that. You guys all knew that, but we moved into the new base about a year ago this month. So that's been going very well.
Excellent. It's all very impressive. How much time do you spend over here?
Oh, I try and get over here a couple times a week at least, and Bridget's, she gets over here maybe even more than that. A lot of times she'll start out at Lakeview and then come over here in the afternoons. So we each have an office over here. Yeah,
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Any questions?
Great
Anybody?
job.
thanks, Jim.
Anybody else? All right, John, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here.
Absolutely, anytime.
Great to see you.
Yeah, good to see you, thanks.
All right, comments and suggestions from citizens present. Once again, please keep your time to 5 minutes or less. We are not taking comments on anything that is on the agenda. We wanted to make sure that the comments have something to do with the governance of the city of Hudson. We're on Zoom. We don't have anybody here live to comment tonight. Anybody on Zoom, please remember to unmute yourselves. And please just chime in, as we can't see where I'm at, people raising their hands.
State your name and address.
So, yes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, and please identify yourselves.
Yep, my name is Becca Hagel, and I live on 3rd Street in Hudson. I have a comment about our open records request process. I'd really like to see the council look into this process and look at the inequities that are involved with the process. I'd also like them to look into the fact that the pricing is not very transparent. It should be much more transparent on the website. And as far as the inequities go, anybody in any socioeconomical class should be able to afford to request records, and that's really not the case right now.
Okay, thanks, Becca. Anybody else? Any other comments?
Yes. Hi, my name is Kristen.
Kristen, last name, please?
My last name is Emerson.
Okay, I can't see your thing. Okay, go ahead.
Yep. So first of all, before my comment, I'm wondering what the protocol is for actually responding to public comment. I know that Aaron Reeves says you shouldn't respond to public comment, but I know that the law says you can respond to public comment. I also know that my older person is not necessarily my trusted representative. So I'm curious as to how public comment is responded to. With that said, I'd like to start my comment. I live on Green Street. 2 days ago, my driveway and my street were blocked off by a large number, 12 cars from various branches of law enforcement, including state troopers, Hudson Police Department, and St. Croix County. They were in my driveway with rifles. They were running through my street and my yard. People were really scared. And no information was given to us about what was going on. We had to, if you had an app that you could download to listen to a scanner, that's what we had to do to find out what was going on. I've talked to a number of people and listened to the scanner, and evidently a call came in regarding a man with a firearm. And this man was evidently previously known to law enforcement. This man also happens to be a person of color, and he has a mental illness, which if he's known to law enforcement, I'm guessing that they know that. As it turns out, this man wasn't actually in the house. So while numerous law enforcement were literally running through my yard with rifles, this man, who was such a threat, was wandering through the neighborhood and ended up tapping them on the shoulder and saying, "Hey, that's my house," at which point they tased him. As a contrast, last summer, I'm part of the Bridge group, and we had somebody who was threatening us with a gun on the bridge, with a gun. We called the police, we called 911 3 times. It was about a 30-minute response when we finally got somebody to show up. I guess my question is, why is there such a discrepancy in the way law enforcement responds to calls from the community? And what would be the plan going forward to make changes in the way people with mental health issues are addressed by police? And I also want to know when I can expect a response to my questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Any other comments?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Beth Weiskopf. I live on Donowell Way here in Hudson, Wisconsin. I just have one comment to make. After watching the last city council meeting on February 15th and the motion that was brought forth by Councilman DeZiel about rescinding the motion adopted on September 8th, 2020 to deny approval of ordinance 15-20 and resolution 16-20, declaring an emergency in the city of Hudson and establishing COVID-19 prevention and control measures. It was brought to my attention that this sounds more like a motion of reconsideration of a previous action of the council. Such a motion may only be brought, one, by the council members on the winning side of the vote, which Councilman DeZiel was not, and two, at the very next meeting of the council, which was also not the case, thus deeming the action taken on February 15th possibly illegal. I am by no means a lawyer and so I would ask that the city attorney take a look at this and explain if what I'm stating is correct or not. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Any other comments? Any other comments? Hearing none, we'll move on, close that portion of the agenda. Consent agenda.
Approve the meeting minutes from the February 15th, 2021 regular council meeting. Approve the claims in the amount of $12,312,139.79. Approve the operator's license listed on the list sheet. Approve supporting the WMCA resolution number 2021-1 requesting clerks, their staff, and poll workers be included in the vaccination group 1B for the COVID-19 vaccination. Approve the request to purchase 2 poll cameras for surveillance purposes.
Can you pull that one?
Approve a fence easement agreement for 1713 Stone Pine Circle, Michael and Kelly Anderson. Approve the purchase of the road patcher body from RCM Equipment in the amount of $169,732.50. And approve the purchase of the 2021 single axle cab over chassis from Nuss and Equipment in the amount of $138,541.
Becky, did you hear that I asked?
I've got it.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't hear it. What?
We're pulling item E.
Okay.
Move to approve.
We got a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item E. Roll call?
Morissette,
Yes.
Alms, DeZiel,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
and Hull.
Yes.
Motion's approved, consent agenda is approved with the exception of item E. Item E.
It was recommended out of finance to have 3 cameras instead of 2. So I would move to approve the 3.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve item E as amended to 3 cameras. Any discussion?
I'm just wondering, I don't know if everyone was at finance. Randy, can you explain a little bit the rationale for the 3?
Well, Jeff, go ahead. The original was 2, Paul, and it was, I've seen Jim Weber's email in regards to adding more, and I thought that was a good idea. But also Jeff has got some more information about future cameras for downtown, which are more expensive. But go ahead, Jeff, explain what you were.
Right, so what I was explaining to finance is essentially these cameras are mobile. They can be moved to different locations. And kind of a short-term solution, so to speak. A more long-term solution would be having actual fixed CCTV type cameras, various places throughout the city that could be monitored through like a dispatch center or at our department. So as we were talking about the usage of these cameras, a recommendation was made to possibly add another camera if there was funding available. If that answers any of your question.
Yep, I'm just, is it just more flexibility, primary chief, or is it like, are you anticipating big events where we would need the 3 kind of be used at the same time?
Yes. Yeah, well, we are anticipating, I wouldn't say anticipating, trying to prepare for potential issues, but also expand our ability to do surveillance and monitor certain events that you don't necessarily have the staff to sit and watch, if that makes sense. But they're also much, much cheaper than a bona fide CCTV system.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, prices.
And at some point, if we want, we can put the more expensive cameras in our CIP, in the next CIP round of bonding. Just another piece of equipment to help us take care of safety issues.
Do we have was there a motion?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, anybody else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion possible action to adopt Resolution 5-21, preliminary resolution for special assessments related to the 2021 State Highway 35 reconstruction project sidewalk replacement.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, City Council members. So this item tonight is adoption of the preliminary resolution declaring intent to exercise special assessment powers for the replacement of sidewalks along State Highway 35, which is also 2nd Street. And this section is just on the section from Vine Street on north up to the Lake Malibu Bridge. So in that section, you may recall, is being completely reconstructed by WISDOT, including our public utilities and everything as well. But WISDOT does not replace sidewalks with their complete reconstruction projects, which I think is interesting. But we feel that it would be a good idea to replace the remaining sidewalks along that stretch of 2nd Street. Right now, there are places where there's tripping hazards, places where the slopes are outside of ADA requirements. And so it would kind of just feel like it would be a good time to replace all the sidewalks just to make everything fresh and new again. So this preliminary resolution just essentially allows staff to then put a report together and contact the affected properties to let them know this is coming. And then there would be a second public hearing called and a second resolution adopting the final assessment amounts after the bids are opened. The bids are scheduled to be opened on March 9th, so that'd be next week. And so we would hope to have the final, or have the public hearing after that bid opening date on March 15th. And then also after that, do the final resolution for adopting these assessments. So yeah, step one in the process is tonight, and then we've got more steps to go. So if we adopt this tonight, there's no obligation for us to go forward with the project if the bids come in high or anything like that. This is just kind of the first step in the assessment process.
So Dean, you don't have an estimated amount? I mean, you just said in your little statement there that it's just to fix the aesthetics, make it all look shiny and new.
Well, it's not just that. I mean, there are deficiencies within the sidewalks out there right now where there are tripping hazards that we would want to address. There are deficient cross slopes in some of the sidewalks. Some of the drainage is going the wrong direction rather than toward the street, it's going away from the street. And then by the time we fixed all that stuff, there's only little bits and pieces left over that we would just want to replace the rest of those essentially as well. So we had already anticipated that some chunks also of sidewalk would have to be replaced due to utility services being replaced too. So kind of all these together, we just decided that our staff recommends to just get all the sidewalks replaced with the project right now. And with all the concrete work that's going on with the project, we should get a very good price for doing that with sidewalk work.
No, I get that. I just want us to be mindful of our taxpayers that are paying for this and no fault of their own.
Nope, I understand that.
Is this one we have to suspend the rules on?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Second.
Got a motion and second to suspend the rules. Roll call.
Oh, Becky probably can't unmute her microphone. Oh,
I think I got it. Morset,
Yes.
DeZiel,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
and Hall.
yes.
Motion's approved. Rules are suspended.
Move to approve preliminary resolution 05-21.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dean. So, communications, I would like to, first of all, congratulate our boys hockey team as state champions. They won their 5th title. Congratulations to the team, to their coaches. Once again, represented our city very well, and we couldn't be prouder of you. Our girls our girls basketball team took second at the state. Once again, a very representative showing of our city, and we want to congratulate them on making it into the state tournament. And we're looking forward to the same types of results coming from all of them in the future. So once again, congratulations to all of you, and thank you. Anybody else?
Yes, it was brought to my attention that somebody wanted to make a comment during the comments section, and she was unable to mute her microphone, and then when she realized that she had to raise her hand, it was too late, we'd already moved on. Could we listen to her comment, please?
Sure. Is she still on?
Yes.
Brian, do you see the hand raised? There we go. Oh. Allow her, there we go.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. This is Kelsey Janetsky. I live downtown Hudson. Ironically, my request was actually if the city could make more clear the procedures for what we need to do to make public comment. So that's a little embarrassing. And then also, if we could also make more clear on our website the procedures required for public records request and what that actually looks like and means. I think giving citizens more access to their representatives and their records is better service to everyone. So that's my request in that comment. So thank you so much for making the time. I appreciate it.
You're more than welcome. Thank you for the comment.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
We got a motion and second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion's approved. We stand adjourned. Thanks, everybody.